Greetings, gods and goddesses in training. I'm in Bangalore airport right now, and I'm about to tap in with a real quick video for you guys because I don't have a lot of time today. I'll be traveling and so forth. So I've been thinking about this idea of not taking things personally. This goes so deep that it goes into the philosophy of Wu Wei. It goes into the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, of detachment and not, being in the world, not of it, in the Bible. And there's a lot of different nuances and different kinds of ways of thinking about this topic. One thing to understand is when you take something personally, what you're essentially doing is you're personalizing something. So therefore, you're more likely to get annoyed at that thing that you're personalizing about yourself, right? Because the only reason we get violent or angry or annoyed or, frustrated with something is because we're so attached to the way that our persona is clinging to that moment, right? So for instance, if you're a mother and you see your child in pain, you're attaching to the identity structure of being a good mother, right? Therefore, if your child is in pain and you're not doing something about it, it might prove to your ego mind identity that you're a bad mother. Whereas that might not be the case, right? So we have to do what we can. And the analogy that I got from RJ Spina is it's like oil on top of water. You know how oil on top of water does not rise to the bottom, it stays on the top, it stays on the surface of it. So it doesn't mix in with the water, right? So there could be a toxic environment or something around you that's very negative, but you could still maintain and keep a high vibration bubble wherever you go. It doesn't need to be there. You sync to every moment, and you start mixing, intermingling, and enmeshing in other people's issues and problems to thrive in this world. And I have to learn this as a counselor, a coach, and a positive psychologist, right? I have to do this every single time when a client is telling me a very deep story or something where I feel like, dang, right? That stings my heart. Like I feel like personalizing this. I feel like going into my own empathetic storyline and absorbing everything they're saying like a sponge. Whereas if I just don't personalize it and I listen like it's a really good story. When you're watching a movie, you're a little bit distanced from it. It's called the fourth wall, right? You're distanced from it because you're not in it. So you can safely watch it and enjoy it, the horror or the romance or the, adventure on screen, and not get super attached to it, right? So in the same way, when something happens and shows up in your life like this, that's quite shocking and perturbs you, makes you angry, you just have to think that you're rising above it. Another analogy of rising above it, if you think of this, is your heart, between the space of your heart and your spine. If you imagine that is where your core kind of inner center is. And just like a submarine puts up a periscope to see on top, those are your pair of eyes, right? So your real experience is happening here, but you're living from the eyes, right? Like a periscope. So once you understand that, you can actually sink down into your actual beingness, remain centered in a sense, right? Instead of getting wrapped up in whatever storyline people are telling you. This is a big issue that we have as human beings, is we want to classify and make everything into a story for us. Our mind naturally does this. It clunks events, memories, and things into stories. And if you can look at this as a non-narrative, like if you can look at your life as a non-narrative, meaning that it's not a story, like it's just events happening simultaneously, right? You won't get so attached to the storyline then, because again, you are separate from the story, right? You're the one in the story. You're not absorbed and enmeshed and intermingled into the story, right? When you start to help somebody and then they feel even more burdened or irritated by your help, that's what happens when you impose your will on someone, okay? Your will is very sacred, actually. So if you start to impose your will on others around you, you're never truly going to thrive, okay? Now, I've seen this time and time again, examples that show up again and again, where you start to notice that, wait a minute, this person is overly involved into trying to keep their ego safe and believe that, you know, they have this very specific persona that they're latching on to, right? And if they are not playing that persona, then it's automatically going to be a problem for them, right? Let's say that we have a lot of roles that we play throughout this life, right? And either a caretaker, a healer, or a protector, a leader, perhaps, a boss, right? So we get so stuck on the roles that we can't step outside of the role, right? You know, it's so awkward when you meet a teacher that you've met in the past in the grocery market, or like, you know, somewhere where you're walking and you kind of see them and you're like, you try to avoid them. Why? Because they're in a different role, right? So you don't know how it's going to be, and you're projecting that it's going to be awkward, so it's going to be awkward. You get what I mean? So this is why you have to try to advance your way of thinking, because it really comes down to your mentality, right? At the end of the day, everything is mindset, everything is mentality. And this whole world is happening through our psyche. So if you can understand that, I'm going to wait for this announcement because it's hella annoying. You can also start to journal on different ideas and concepts like, who am I, right, when nobody's watching me? Who am I when nobody's perceiving me, okay? When I'm just by myself, who am I? And knowing your own self-definition and having a self-governance, right? And understand that a lot of the times when people get annoyed at you, they're projecting onto you, okay? It's because of their own conditioning. And if you take that personally, you're just taking their programming personally, which means that their programming is now almost being interwoven and locked into your karmic patterns, right? So if someone has a specific karma and I go in there and I try to enmesh into their storyline and karma, I'm going to get the brunt of their karma, right? So this is why it's important for you to understand how you are spending your time, especially when it comes down to projections and attaching on to them, right? Like really sticking to them instead of changing it around. And so another thing that I've realized is I've tried to find this kind of inner separation from my true self, my I am presence, and my ego mind identity. So what you do is you start to pause before reacting, right? You take a few breaths before actually reacting. That creates a space and a delay time for you to actually respond rather than react, okay? And another technique, so another visualization that I'm going to give you, which is very, very powerful, is smoke dissolving in an open sky. That is people's projections, comments, and judgments on you, okay? So if it's in an open sky and you are the sky, that means it can't stick to it, right? Similarly to the other metaphor that I used of oil and water not, mixing with each other. So in the same way, when you understand that, wait a second, I am reacting because based on my ego, it wants me to have this situation in a very specific way. It wants to protect me, it wants to validate me, right? It wants to keep things very predictable. So once I embrace and let go and surrender to the present moment, it's like how I'm surrendering to the present moment now. I'm recording a video inside of an airport, right? Which is very out of the ordinary, right? You don't see people making a video in the airport because of all the noise and hullabaloo that goes on here, okay? However, I'm just like, whatever, right? Let me just tap in, right? And this is the mentality of the flow state shaman. You just got to be able to tap in anywhere, man. You don't need the perfect circumstance and the perfect situations all the time. You have to just have the mentality that keeps stacking forward into different things, okay? Don't get so caught up in the difficult, mundane nuances of the day-to-day life. Start to rise above it and stop taking things so personal, man. This world is not personal. It is universal. And the more personal it is, the more universal it is. You'll start to understand this as you grow older. You'll start to get that, wait a minute, my problem is not only my problem, it's my attitude on the problem. And once I let go, once I actually surrender to the present moment, I will have the actual clue where my I am presence will actually step in and make things smoother for me so that I can solve the problem, okay? So the practice is you let go. And it's not easy. It's easy to say, it's not easy to do, okay? So I value anybody who gives this a shot and actually tries to improve their situation and their condition. So there's another concept of love without taking ownership of another's chaos, okay? You can still love somebody and not be enmeshed and intermingled into their nonsense, okay? So this is why it's important for you to almost zoom out in the picture and start to understand it doesn't matter. Like what you have in your mind that's a fear, that's a limit, it doesn't matter in the bigger picture, right? Is it gonna matter in 5 years from now? The situation that you're stressing about? Probably not, right? Just for this moment, it's irritating. So let it be irritating, right? It's like smoke in the sky, right? And you are the sky. Eventually that smoke fades away. And you understand that there's a freedom there. You don't need to, attach onto that symbolism and make it even worse for you as a byproduct. You can just drop the story and pick up a better story, better belief. Right? This is what the chaos mages believe. They can pick up a different belief system to completely transform their current condition. This is why I can be a Taoist today and a Christian tomorrow and a Buddhist the next day, right? And I can keep switching. But I still remain the sky, the choice point. So, yeah, that's my advice, guys. Okay, stop volunteering to be an extra in somebody else's trauma play. Like, you don't need to constantly enmesh into other people's nonsense, okay? You can remain in your own world, in your own reality. Kind of looking at things like if you were to look at the whole situation, bird's eye view, or like I'm from the top of a mountain, how would it look, right? It would look very tiny. If you could see that you're looking at, let's say, a bunch of cars from a highway, how would it look? Very tiny, small cars, right? It's not that big a deal. All you've done is change your perspective, change your view. That's actually all you've done, right? So the situation, if looked at differently from a fresh pair of eyes, from the present moment, where everything heals, where there's self-healing, where there is potentiality, and where there's a freedom, there's an effervescence and a freedom there. So why not tap into the skill set? Okay, I'm a little bit tired still. I couldn't get much sleep in the bus because you know how buses are, man. Okay, especially with bumpers here in Karnataka, like friggin' earthquake over here. Okay, but yeah, thank you guys for tapping in. Hit that like and subscribe button. Real quick video today, but I hope it gave you value and I hope it changed your mindset and perspective. Use these techniques, okay? Don't just watch and just smile and just leave comments. Actually use the stuff, right? And improve your life, improve your conditioning, and improve your condition. And may your life never be the same again. May the flow be with you. Stay legendary. Take care. And once again, we will talk soon, okay? Hosts, and the flow be with you. Upward Spiral Gang. Peace.